Hi there, RJ Steiner here. I'm going to cover device user role based access for case events. So we have a new standard when managing a profile that you add a role select to the user profile form, and this will allow you to define, given that device user that's using the tablet, depending on which role they have selected, which events in a case they'll have access to. And I'll get more into what access means in a minute. But just note, for this demonstration, this will probably be the default roles that we'll have on the form from here on forth, is data collector and admin. So I'm admin right now. And note, this manage profile button I'm seeing up here, this is available because I've temporarily set manage profile to true. Hide profile to false. Also, something to note is if your installation does have hide profile to false, this will not be editable on the tablet. In case of role escalation issues in security, there's some logic in the form to make sure this is disabled when it's actually on the tablet. Right now, there's logic in there to say if we're in a Tangerine preview context, to not disable this. So if you're using Tangerine preview to develop content, this makes switching your roles to test your role-based access rules more straightforward, so you don't have to either programmatically set the profile variable or whatever else. So that's what I'm going to do for this demonstration. Is using Tangerine preview, I'm going to swap back and forth between the different roles and see how that's impacted what I can see in the events on a specific case. So I have created a case, a Homer Simpson case. And for this demonstration, there's two case event definitions where I will demonstrate different levels of access. We have this admin can create and read, data collector can read only, can only read event definition, and we have an admin can create and read event definition. That means data collector can't read or create. So again, two different event definitions that are going to demonstrate a lot of the potential combinations here. Before I demonstrate them, let's just look at the settings for the event definitions, these two event definitions. Here's the first one. Here's that first event definition. Admin can create, read, data collector can only read. And the second one, admin can create, read. I'll talk a little bit about the intent behind this first one. The goal for this first event definition would be where you don't want someone with a role of data collector creating an event. Perhaps it requires some higher level permission to say, like, this event is happening or when it's happening, some kind of workflow like that. But you do want some roles, in this case data collector role, to be able to access the event, to read it, and to fill out forms on it. And so that's what we've done here. So you can see under this new access property on an event definition, it's an object where you can define an array of roles, of device user roles that can create it, and then here's the array of device user roles that can read this event. Reminder, this concept of a role is different from a case role. Case roles are, remember these roles, probably defined up here, case roles that we assign to participants. The person viewing using the tablet is not a participant. They are a device user, and they have their own user profile. Different concepts. Just real quick clarification on that. When we're talking about roles, two different types now: device user role and case role. So again, for this event definition, the admins can create it, but because data collector is not listed here, they can't read it. However, excuse me, because data collector is not listed in the create, they can't create it. However, they are listed in the read, so they can read it. So let's demonstrate that, and then we'll move on to the next event definition. So I'm admin, so I can create this one, and I can read it. I see it here. And now if I switch over to my manage profile, and I switch over to the role of data collector, and I save that, open the case again, I can see the event, but I can't create that event. It's not listed here as something I can create. All right, great. Let's demonstrate the next one. The next event definition. Next event definition is more restrictive. It's pretty much an admin only. Only admins can create it. Only admins can read it. Let's switch back over to you can see that admin can create and read event is not available here for the data collector role. Move back over here. Switch to admin. Now that I'm an admin, I can create this. I can also read it. I can see it here. And if I switch back now to data collector, I will not be able to see that event that was created by the admin. But I can see the one that I have read access to. Important to note, so these permissions are evaluated sort of like on demand. So if we reconfigure them here, we'll see that reflected in the event event instances that exist. So let's say we decide that we do want this event data collectors to view and create these. Data collector, data collector. And now I'm a data collector, and I can read this. Admin can create and read, even though I'm a data collector. And I can also create it, even though I'm a data collector, because we added this here. So I guess the thing to point out is the permissions are retroactive. So there may be events that are created. You may toggle, add some permissions here, and the people who are data collectors are now seeing more events that were created in the past, as opposed to events that are created from here on forth. I think that's about it. That's as basic of a demonstration as I can come up with for this. Obviously, if your use case requires to have many different types of roles, you add them to the user profile. You define them when you're creating, then you define what role that person is going to be when you're creating a device user on the server. Then when they associate on the tablet, they will have that role. And and you manage the access to each kind of event via this access property on the event definition itself. There will be a follow-up video where I'm going to demonstrate managing access on the event form level. So getting a little bit more granular, there might be scenarios where data collector can read. For example, a data collector we might want them to be able to open an event, but we don't want to give them access to all of the forms. And I have just a few more combinations to cover that I didn't cover in my first take on this. And that's what happens when you start removing these permissions. if I remove, for example, if I remove this entire access definition, this essentially goes back to what it was like before we had role-based access. This means everybody can create and read. So I am data collector, and so now I can read that event, and I can also create them. Let's give another scenario. Let's say we emptied these out and just had an empty array. Now this would imply that no one can read it. More interesting is probably no one creating it. That's probably more likely what you're going to go for. Let's switch this around. So now we're saying no one can create it. If I switch, for example, to be an admin, this admin can create and read is not listed here. The admin can create and read, comma, data collector can only read. We see this other one that I have here. But because we have no roles defined for create, no one's allowed to create it. This might be useful in scenarios where you essentially want to unlist something from this this event list, something that maybe is only going to be created programmatically on the submit of another form. It's a way to get something unlisted and only create programmatically. So now what happens if I totally remove create? This again now reverts back to as if there's no settings at all, which means everyone has create permissions. So we see this event back, and if I switch back over to being a data collector, they'll have access to do that as well. Yeah, so three different combinations, additional combinations when we start talking about like removing access information. Again, when it's completely gone, it's as if everyone has access to creating and reading. If you don't define a permission for create or read, it's as if everyone can do it. So in this scenario, everybody can create. And if you leave a permission as an empty array, it means that no one can do it. All right, I think that about wraps up all the different combinations. Again, thanks for watching. Bye now.